It was quiet, unusually quiet, the kind of silence that settles in after years of chaos, laughter, and everyday noise have left their mark on the walls. Laura had gone out to grab groceries. At least that's what she said. But knowing her, she'd come back with something decorative for the house, or maybe even a little surprise for me. She was always like that, thoughtful even in the smallest ways. We've been married 24 years, and in just a few weeks we'll hit the 25-year mark. A full quarter century. That realization hit me harder than I expected. It felt like only yesterday I was nervously fiddling with a ring in my coat pocket, trying to figure out how to pop the question without looking like a total idiot. And now here we are, two grown kids out of the house, and suddenly everything feels so much bigger, so much quieter. Both of them, Noah and Sophie, are off at college now. Noah's about to graduate his senior year. Sophie just kicked off her sophomore. It's strange without them around. The house used to be full of energy. Noah blasting his music upstairs, Sophie getting into it with Laura over curfew rules. There was always something going on. Friends in and out, doors opening and slamming shut. Now, it's just me and Laura most of the time. And when she's out like this, it's just me. Eventually, I figured it was time to crawl out of bed. Laura would probably laugh if she saw me now, lounging around like a retired old man when the sun's barely up. I reached for the vitamin bottle on my nightstand, popped the lid, and shook one into my palm. Or tried to, anyway. The pill bounced off my hand, hit the floor, and, of course, rolled right under the bed. With a frustrated sigh, I let out a few choice words and dropped to my knees to fish it out. It was darker under there than I expected, with a faint musty smell I hadn't noticed before. I reached around blindly, my fingers brushing over some dust bunnies and an old sock, probably one of Noah's from before he moved out. Then I touched something else, thin, crinkly, and totally out of place. I pulled it into the light and stared at it, my stomach dropping like a stone. It was a condom wrapper. I froze, just sat there on the floor, staring at it like I just uncovered some ancient relic. At first, I was just confused. Who the hell would that belong to? No one's been here. No visitors, no parties, nothing. It's just been me and Laura in this house for the past 3 months. And then, another thought hit me. One that made my chest feel tight. I had a vasectomy after Sophie was born. We'd both agreed 2 kids was plenty, and I went through with it without a second thought. So why the hell would there be a condom wrapper under our bed? That's when it started to creep in. That thought I didn't want to face, but couldn't ignore. Laura might be cheating on me. The anger came fast, sharp and burning, but I forced myself to swallow it. What was I going to do? Confront her the second she walked through the door, waving this wrapper around like it was proof in a courtroom? That wouldn't get me anywhere. She'd deny it. Or worse, she'd flip it on me. No, this wasn't enough. I needed more than a scrap of plastic to back me up. I stood up, pulled on a pair of jeans and a shirt, grabbed my keys and got the hell out of the house. The walls suddenly felt too close, like they were closing in. I needed to think. And I knew exactly who to call. Davy Carter. Not the pirate from the movies, the real Davy Carter. An old buddy of mine, and a damn good private investigator. He earned that nickname back when he was in the Navy, and it stuck even after he traded ships for sidewalks. If anyone could get to the bottom of this, it was him. When I stepped into his office, Davy was leaned back in his chair, feet propped up, sipping from a chipped old mug. He looked up, grinned, and stood to shake my hand. Well, if it isn't Grayson Cole, he said, motioning for me to sit down. What brings you by? I hesitated, trying to find the right words, but then I just let it all out. The condom wrapper, the suspicions, the gut feeling that had been eating at me. Davy listened the whole time, nodding here and there but not saying a word. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing at the stubble on his chin. All right, Grayson, he said finally. I'll help you. Give me a week to dig into it. But then he paused, giving me a hard look. Before we dive in, though, I want you to think real hard. If this turns out to be what you suspect, you need to be ready. Talk to a lawyer. Figure out what you're up against, financially and otherwise. The word divorce sent a cold shiver through me. But I knew he was right. Yeah, I said softly. I'll talk to someone. Davy stood and gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. We'll get to the truth, Grayson. I promise. I nodded, thanked him, and left his office, my hands slipping into my pocket where the wrapper still sat like a burning coal. 2 hours later, I was in another office, this time across from Mason Drake. The man himself leaned back in his chair, eyeing me like a hawk sizing up dinner. He had a reputation for being the best divorce lawyer in town, and he earned it. If anyone could give me the unfiltered truth, it was him. I laid everything out, the whole story, and waited as Mason scribbled a few notes onto his legal pad. Finally, he looked up, his expression flat. Grayson, if this heads where you think it's headed, you're looking at losing half. The house, your savings, your assets, everything. Virginia doesn't mess around. It's a clean 50-50 split. Half. 50% of everything I'd worked for. Everything Laura and I had built together. It felt like a sucker punch straight to the gut. But even with all that pain, one thing rang clear in my head. I could lose the money, the house, even years of my life. But I couldn't stay married to someone who'd betrayed me. Mason must have read my face because he leaned in a little, lowering his voice. If you're serious about this, here's what you do: keep your head down. Don't act any different. Don't let her see what you're thinking. If she catches wind of this, she'll lawyer up too, and then things will get ugly real fast. I nodded, the weight of his advice settling in my chest. I'll do my best, I told him. By the time I stepped out of his office, I felt wrung out. Exhausted. But also focused. Determined. I had to keep it together, even though everything inside me was screaming. When I walked back into the house, Laura was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables like it was any other day. She glanced up and smiled, completely calm, like nothing was out of the ordinary. That smile hit me square in the chest, but I forced myself to return it. I've got a work trip tomorrow, I said, leaning casually against the counter like it was no big deal. Gonna be gone the whole week. That night, she slipped into bed beside me, her fingers grazing my arm as she moved closer. Her body warm against mine, her intentions clear. Come on, she whispered, her voice soft and familiar. But I couldn't do it. I'm just tired, I muttered, flat and distant. She was quiet for a second, then let out a small sigh and rolled over, turning her back to me. I lay there in the dark, staring up at the ceiling while my thoughts twisted and tangled. Was I overreacting? What if I'd gotten it all wrong? Maybe the condom wrapper wasn't hers. Noah had stayed in our room for a couple nights before heading off to college while his room was getting painted. Could it have been his? Maybe it slipped out of his pocket somehow. Or maybe I was just desperate to believe that this wasn't what it looked like. Still, what if it was exactly what I feared? What if Laura really was cheating on me? The questions circled my mind like vultures, each one picking at whatever resolve I had left. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stop now. I had to follow this through wherever it ended up. The next morning, I got up early, threw a few things into a bag, and called for a cab. Laura barely stirred as I left, her soft breathing the only sound in the quiet house as I pulled the front door shut behind me. The drive out of town was uneventful. The busy city slowly faded into long stretches of road and scattered buildings. The motel I checked into was nothing special. Cheap, a little worn, but clean enough. And more importantly, anonymous. Exactly what I needed. I checked in, tossed my bag onto the bed, and sat down, staring at the faded wallpaper as the hours dragged by. It was almost evening when my phone buzzed. Wes's name lit up the screen. Grayson, he said, his voice steady but with a serious edge. Laura just left the house. She checked into a motel. My heart skipped a beat. Which one? I asked, my voice tight. He hesitated. The same one you're in. I sat there, frozen on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear. The silence of the room felt suffocating now. The idea of Laura being just a few feet away in the same motel, it burned through me. When Wes called again, his voice was firm, almost urgent. She's in the room right next to yours, Grayson, he said quietly. Listen. Don't confront her. Not here. Not now. Just leave the room, cool off, clear your head. But I couldn't. No, Wes, I said through clenched teeth. I need to hear it for myself. He let out a heavy sigh, frustration clear in every breath. Fine, but don't do anything stupid. Promise me, Grayson. I mumbled something close to a yes and hung up, my hands shaking. The minutes ticked by slow as hell, each one heavier than the last. Then I heard voices through the wall. At first, it was muffled, just the sound of her voice and a man's, low and unfamiliar. But then it became crystal clear. They were having sex. Laura was never quiet in bed. That part hadn't changed. But then I heard something that made my stomach turn. I don't know why you're still with him, the man said, his voice dripping with smug contempt. The guy's old, washed up. He can't give you what you need, can he? Laura's voice came next, breathless, full of something that didn't even sound like her anymore. No, he can't, she said. Her words cut deep, sharp as a knife. You're the best I've had in a long time. He's just old now. The man let out a cruel laugh. Then why stay with him? She didn't even hesitate. I need him to keep the bills paid. Now shut up and keep doing what you're good at. I sat there, frozen. Every part of me tensed up, my breath shallow, my hands curled into fists. Their laughter from the next room felt like acid, eating through me. I couldn't take another second. I stood up, my fists clenched, ready to storm in there and end it. But before I could move, the door to my room opened, and Wes stepped inside. His face was hard. He grabbed my arm before I could take a step. Don't, he said, firm and low. Not like this. Let me go. I snapped, trying to pull free, but he held on tighter. Grayson, listen to me, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. They left the window open. I've got the camera rolling. I'm filming everything. You'll have all the evidence you need. But if you bust in there right now, you'll be the one in trouble. You'll be the one the cops haul away. And that'll kill your divorce case. I stared at him, my vision blurring with rage. I don't care about the divorce, I growled. I want them to suffer. Wes didn't flinch. And they will, he said calmly. But not tonight. Not this way. You blow up now, and you lose everything. For a second, I kept fighting him, anger boiling just under the surface. But Wes didn't let go. His words were like cold water, smacking me awake. Little by little, the fire inside me started to fade, replaced by a crushing grief. I collapsed onto the bed, my head in my hands. I felt destroyed, ashamed, like a fool. The woman I'd trusted for 23 years was in the next room, wrecking everything we'd built. After a long, suffocating silence, I stood up, my jaw tight, my hands still shaking. I'll make her pay, I said, my voice low, steady, every word laced with heat. She can take the house, the money, but I'll burn her world down the same way she burned mine. After Wes left, I sat alone in the dim light of that motel room, my thoughts spinning out of control. Felt like my body weighed a ton. The plan was simple, stay gone for 3 days while Wes kept watch. That was the deal. But being stuck in that room, knowing what was happening next door, was its own kind of torture. By the time Wes called again that night, I was already pacing the room, my fists tight, my brain stuck on repeat, reliving every horrible word she said. His voice on the line was steady, like he was trying to anchor me. She and the guy just left the motel, he said. I've got a positive ID, Wes said. His name's Caleb Monroe. He works with her. I didn't say anything right away. My throat had gone dry, my chest tight. Caleb Monroe. The name didn't ring any bells. But knowing it was someone from her office, that somehow hurt worse than I expected. All those nights she claimed she was staying late for work. Wes went on, still sounding calm and matter-of-fact. I'll keep eyes on her. Just hang tight like we planned. We don't want to jump the gun until we've got everything. I barely got a word out before ending the call. The next few hours were brutal. Every tick of the clock felt like a punch to the gut, a constant reminder of where she was, and who she was with. The next day, Wes checked in again. His updates were short, direct, but each one landed like a hammer. She's been spending time at Caleb's place, he said. Same routine every time. Meeting up after work, staying late. I've got more than enough footage now. I didn't say a word, just gripped the phone like it was the only thing holding me together. Wes paused, then added, She's been sleeping with him every day, Grayson. It's happening at his house before she heads back to yours. Later, I met up with Wes and Mason in Mason's office. The room felt heavy, blinds shut, the air smelling faintly of old leather and fresh coffee. Mason leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. Wes stood near the window, arms crossed. We stick to the plan, Mason said, his voice calm but firm. You go home, play it cool. She can't suspect a thing. He glanced over at Wes, who nodded. "The evidence we've got is rock solid," Wes added. "But the longer you keep up the act, the tighter your case becomes. You've got to stay normal, Grayson," he continued. "No blow-ups, no slip-ups. Let her think she's still in control." I swallowed hard, feeling my stomach twist. "I get it," I said quietly. "I'll handle it." Mason leaned forward, his gaze sharp. "Just remember, if you lose your temper, you lose your leverage. Keep your head straight." I nodded and took a deep breath. We went over everything one more time before I left. The weight of it all pressed down on me, but I was committed. I had to see it through. When I got back home, Laura was in the kitchen again. Her face lit up like sunshine when she saw me. "You're back," she said, walking toward me like she was about to hug me. I stepped back, raising a hand. "Hold up," I said quickly. "I think I might have been exposed to COVID. Someone at work tested positive, and I'm starting to feel a little off." Her expression changed instantly, worry creeping into her eyes. "Oh no. Are you okay? Any symptoms?" "Just a sore throat," I lied, keeping my tone steady. "But I think I should sleep in the guest room for a few days, just to be safe." She nodded right away, her concern seeming real. "Of course. Let me know if you need anything, tea, soup, whatever. I'll take care of you." I gave her a small smile. Forced, but enough to pass. "Thanks. I'll manage." She paused, then asked, "Should we cancel the anniversary party? It's only a few weeks away." I shook my head, keeping my voice neutral. "Nah, no need for that. I'll be fine in a few days. While I'm quarantined, I'll use the time to plan everything out." Her face softened. She smiled. "That's sweet of you." I nodded again, keeping up the act. On the inside, though, I was anything but okay. Later, my phone buzzed on the nightstand in the guest room. I didn't even have to check, I knew it was Wes. "She left the office during lunch," he said immediately. "She's back at Caleb's. Same routine." My jaw clenched, but I said nothing, letting him talk. "I sent you the files, photos, and videos. Should all be in your inbox now." I stared at the screen for a second before pulling up the email. There it was, undeniable proof. Shots of Laura walking into Caleb's house. Clips of the two of them, together, doing things I never wanted to picture. For a while, I just sat there watching, silent, the bile rising in my throat. My grip on the phone tightened as the anger roared just beneath the surface. Finally, I broke the silence. "If I wasn't her husband," I said, my voice cold, "I'd probably find these videos hot." I paused, then added, "But now? She just makes me sick." There was a beat of silence on Wes's end before he replied. "I know this is rough, Grayson. But you're almost there. Just a little longer." 7 days of isolation felt like a lifetime. But I stuck to the plan. Laura had no clue. She was too wrapped up in her little secret life to notice anything was off. When it was time to come out of quarantine, I did it with as much calm as I could fake. I rejoined her like nothing had happened. She was excited, probably thinking things were back to normal. When she tried to get close, I gently pulled away. "I'm still feeling a little weak," I told her, keeping my voice smooth. "Don't think I'm up for anything tonight." She frowned, her concern still written all over her face. "You've been sick, Grayson. Just take it easy, okay?" "I will," I said. "Just not feeling great yet." The next morning, I drove straight to the clinic for a full STD panel. I had to know for sure. I couldn't take any chances. The clinic was quick, efficient. I tried not to think too hard about what the results might say. But deep down, I was bracing for the worst. When I got home, I started working on the anniversary party, sending out invites to family, friends, everyone. The party was happening, and I was going to make sure it was one to remember. Later that day, the phone rang. It was my kids, Noah and Sophie, calling to say they'd be there. Hearing their voices gave me the tiniest flicker of warmth. But it didn't last. That evening, Laura walked up to me with a soft smile, her tone gentle. "I love you, Grayson," she said, like she meant it. "I'm really lucky to have you as my husband." I gave her a small, hollow smile, just enough to keep the mask in place. "I know you are, sweetheart." A week later, the big day finally arrived, our anniversary celebration. Everything was ready. The house buzzed with people, their laughter bouncing off the walls, their voices filling every corner. Everyone was offering congratulations, telling me how lucky I was, how beautiful our journey together had been. Laura looked radiant, as always, glowing with that bright, polished smile she saved for guests. She'd invited her coworkers, of course. Caleb was among them, standing there with his wife, playing the part. But I saw it. The way they glanced at each other when they thought no one was looking. The way Laura clung to my arm like her life depended on it, while Caleb hovered nearby, pretending to be wrapped up in some meaningless small talk. I hadn't invited anyone from my office. I could have, sure. But I didn't want them there, didn't want them caught up in the show I was about to put on. Laura noticed, naturally. Strange none of your coworkers came, she said. They're stuck in a big meeting, I replied smoothly, not missing a beat. It wasn't exactly a lie. Just a carefully worded version of the truth. Her parents showed up not long after, all warm smiles and kind words. They hugged me, told me how proud they were, how happy they were for us. I smiled and thanked them like any good son-in-law would. But inside? Inside, I was a volcano on the verge of eruption. They didn't know the truth. Not yet. Laura kept close to me the entire night, her arm looped through mine, that same perfect smile plastered on her face as she worked the room like nothing was wrong. She wanted everyone to see how perfect we were, how in love we still seemed after all these years. But I was counting down the minutes. The whole thing felt too polished, too staged. This was the eye of the storm. The calm before I tore it all down. And then Wes and Mason walked in. The moment I'd been waiting for had finally arrived. Weeks of planning, of pretending every step had led to this. I turned to Laura and gently pulled my hand from hers. Her touch had become a cruel reminder of everything she'd done. She didn't ask why, just smiled and went back to greeting the guests, completely unaware of the bomb that was about to drop. I walked toward the large screen we'd set up for the event. Once I was in place, the lights dimmed and suddenly every eye was on me. I grabbed the mic, my heart hammering in my chest, but I held steady. Thanks to everyone for being here tonight, I began, my voice calm but full of weight. You all mean a lot to me and to Laura. The crowd responded with polite nods and warm smiles. I took a deep breath. I've been married to Laura for 24 years and 6 months. She tried to cut in, her voice low but urgent. No, it's 25 years. I looked at her with a small, knowing smile. I'll explain, honey. Then I turned to Wes. He stood at the edge of the stage, holding a large, gift-wrapped frame in his hands. Wes, I said, would you bring the gift over to my wife? He made his way forward, holding the package carefully. Laura, still smiling, stepped closer, her parents by her side. She had no idea what was coming. Her father helped her peel back the wrapping. Each second dragged like an hour. And then, her expression shattered. The picture staring back at her was burned into my memory. Laura, naked on top of Caleb, caught in the act. She screamed sharp and panicked, and her father exploded just as I expected. Grayson, what the hell is this? Is this some kind of sick joke? He shouted, his face red with rage. I turned to him, fighting to stay calm even as my insides burned. It's not a joke, I said evenly. That's just the high-resolution still. The video is next. Wes stepped over to the laptop. I could hear the faint clicking of the controls. And then the screen lit up. There she was, Laura. Riding Caleb, caught in motion, no room for denial. And her voice rang through the speakers, cold and damning. I'm keeping him around to pay the bills. I'd heard those words before, but hearing them again, in front of everyone, hit like a wrecking ball. Only this time I didn't flinch. The silence that followed was unbearable. Thick. Heavy. Everyone stared, frozen. Then a man in a black suit stepped forward from the crowd. He moved with calm precision, like this was just another day at the office. Without even glancing at Laura, he walked up and handed her a manila envelope. Mrs. Cole, he said quietly, you've been served. She didn't move at first. Her hand instinctively reached for the envelope, but she didn't open it. Her eyes darted between him and me, her face a twisted mix of shock, confusion, and fear. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Then the man turned and walked straight over to Caleb. He looked like a statue, stiff, pale, trying to figure out how this had all unraveled so fast. The suit handed him another envelope. Mr. Monroe, you've been served, he said, just as calmly. Caleb's eyes went wide. He looked at Laura, panic spreading across his face. But before he could say a word, the man moved on. Like he'd done this 100 times before. Next, he made his way across the room, straight to the CEO. The crowd seemed to part around him, their whispers like a wave of static. When he reached the man, he handed over one final envelope. Mr. Langford, you've been served. The CEO, a guy I used to respect, took the envelope with trembling hands. His face drained of color as he looked down at it. What is this? He asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The man didn't respond. He simply turned on his heel and walked out as swiftly as he'd come in. I shifted my attention to Mr. Langford, locking eyes with him, making sure every word landed. Mr. Langford, I said slowly, deliberately, that envelope is a lawsuit for failing to enforce your company's morality code. While your employees were supposedly out on lunch breaks, they were going home to screw around. Literally. The room was dead silent. People were still trying to make sense of everything unraveling in front of them. I watched Langford's face twist with a mix of confusion and rage, but I didn't flinch. He played his part in this mess whether he wanted to admit it or not. Then I turned toward Caleb, the man who not only slept with my wife but shattered the foundation of everything I believed in. "Mr. Monroe," I said, my voice loud and clear, "you've been served for alienation of affection. For helping to destroy my marriage." My words echoed in the room, cutting through the shock like a blade. Then my gaze shifted. To her. Laura. I swallowed hard, but I didn't look away. I couldn't afford to. She had chosen this. She had chosen him over everything we built. "And Laura," I said, my voice thick with finality, "you've just been served for divorce." Her eyes went wide, lips trembling. But I wasn't done. Not yet. She needed to hear this. So did everyone else. "Earlier, I said we've been married for 24 years and 6 months. And that's true." I paused, then added, "But in reality, our marriage died the day you walked out that door and slept with him." The words burned in my throat, but I said them anyway. Because they were true. Every bit of it. And based on the investigation, we know exactly when it started 6 months ago. Her face twisted, guilt and fury flickering behind her eyes. But I didn't care. She made her bed. Now she could lie in it. "I don't care why you did it," I said firmly. "I don't need excuses. I don't need closure. I just need you out of my house." And right then I felt something inside me shift. Click into place. It was done. No more second-guessing. No more pain. What followed was a blur of tension and fallout. The party ended in chaos. But the days after were worse. Laura's parents wouldn't let it go. They kept showing up. Calling. Trying everything they could to talk me down. "Grayson, you have to understand," her mother pleaded one evening, eyes full of desperation. "She's going through something. It's not like her. You've been together so long," she continued. "You can work through this." Her father, always the quiet type, spoke with more weight. "You can't just walk away from 24 years. Think of the family. Think of everything you two built together." But it was too late. The damage had been done. The betrayal had gone too deep. Their words, kind or not, meant nothing to me anymore. I didn't need advice. I didn't need guilt. I gave Laura chance after chance to be honest. And she chose to lie. Over and over. It was finished. But even then she wouldn't stop. She clung to a new excuse, one I never saw coming. At the hearing, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes, her voice cracking. "Grayson, please," she whispered. "I've been going through a lot. A hormone imbalance. That's why I needed more intimacy. You couldn't give me that, and I stared at her in disbelief. That was it? That was her reason for wrecking our entire life? I glanced at Mason. He looked unimpressed. He stood up calmly, arms crossed. "Miss Cole," he said coolly, "you never once informed my client about any hormone-related issues. And to be clear, there are no medical records or reports that support your claim." Laura flinched. Her eyes dropped to the floor. She wasn't expecting to be called out like that. The judge, who'd been quiet until now, finally spoke. He leaned forward, expression stern. "Ms. Cole," he said, his voice hard, "if this medical issue existed, why didn't you communicate it to your husband? Why didn't you seek treatment or attempt to resolve the matter with him directly, especially if it was impacting your marriage this significantly?" Laura didn't answer. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. You could see the panic building in her. But the judge didn't wait. He went on, voice firm with finality. "If you truly suffered from such a condition, it was your responsibility to share it with your husband and to address it appropriately. The court finds no substantial evidence. No valid grounds for reconciliation." His words hit like the slam of a gavel even though he hadn't lifted one yet. But for me, it was the closure I needed. I didn't need to understand Laura's actions anymore. I was done trying. 7 months of court battles. 7 months of emotional wreckage. And finally, the divorce was granted. But the fallout didn't end there. Noah and Sophie, our kids, were caught right in the middle of the wreckage. They didn't pick sides. But their silence said more than words ever could. They were angry with Laura for what she did. But they were angry with me too for how I exposed it. And honestly, I couldn't blame them. I blew up their world. And even if I thought it was justified, I knew it hurt them. Eventually, they stopped talking to either of us. No calls. No texts. It crushed me. But I understood. This was their way of coping. Their way of processing the betrayal, the public unraveling of their family. So I gave them space. I stayed out of their way. It wasn't easy. The silence from my own kids left a void in me that nothing else could fill. But I made my choices. And now I had to live with them. Financially, things changed too. Half of everything I'd worked for gone. Split down the middle. Watching my savings, my investments, even my home get sliced in half was brutal. But in the end, I didn't regret it. Laura took her share. But she didn't take my dignity. She didn't get my self-respect. Those things were still mine. And Caleb? He wasn't exactly walking away clean either. His marriage collapsed right behind mine. His wife hired Mason, same shark who fought for me. And if there's one thing I know, Caleb's not coming out of that divorce in one piece. The man helped wreck my marriage. But now his own world was falling apart. And that was the closest thing to justice I could ask for. And it didn't take long before the consequences started closing in on him too. Caleb wasn't the only one feeling the heat. The CEO, Mr. Langford, he just wanted the whole damn thing to disappear. He had his reputation, his company, and a lot of money on the line. A scandal like this? Bad for business. Real bad. Soon enough, I got a call. He wanted to meet quietly. No lawyers. No media. It was simple, really. He offered me $1 million to drop the lawsuit. All they wanted was silence. Closure. And I was the only one who could give it to them. By then, I had already divorced Laura. I wasn't out for more blood. I wasn't trying to ruin lives. I'd already made peace with what happened. If walking away with a clean break and a 7-figure cushion meant ending the madness and starting fresh, then I was ready. So I signed the papers, shook a few hands, and walked out. I withdrew the case. That $1 million? I still have it. It's not just money. It's a symbol. The price they paid for the truth and the moment I let go of everything. 3 years later, here I am. Sitting on the porch of a modest little farmhouse, watching the sun sink behind the trees, spilling gold and orange across the sky. There's something different about sunsets out here. They last longer. They mean more. The air is clean. The world feels slower. And for the first time in a long time, I feel still. Max and Duke, my 2 German shepherds, lay at my feet. Always alert, always nearby. They don't say much, but they've got this way of making me feel protected. Safe. They're not just dogs. They're family. My silent bodyguards and loyal friends. The farm's not huge. It's not flashy or fancy. But it's mine. And that means something. This past year, I've thrown myself into it. Feeding the chickens, fixing broken fences, learning to work the land. There's something about the rhythm of farm life that grounds you. You wake up with the sun, go to bed with the stars. There's no noise, no rush, no pretending. Just honest work, quiet days, and the kind of peace you can't buy. I've stopped chasing time. Stopped trying to control everything. And somehow that's what helped me find control again. But the biggest surprise? My kids, Noah and Sophie, they've started coming around again. Bit by bit. At first, it was awkward. Tense. But now, we're talking. Really talking. About the farm. About their lives. About nothing and everything. And for once, it's not about fixing the past. It's just about being there. When they need me. When they're ready. As for Laura, word is she's living with her parents now. Going to therapy. Trying to pick up the pieces. I didn't expect her life to be easy. She's got her own demons to fight. And as much as I've tried to cut ties emotionally, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of empathy for her sometimes. I don't hate her. Not anymore. It took me a long time to let go of the bitterness. The anger. The urge to keep reliving what she did. But out here, in the quiet, I've learned something. Holding on to rage doesn't protect you. It chains you to the pain. And I've broken those chains. I'm not stuck in the past anymore. I've moved forward. And for the first time in years, I'm actually happy. I wake up to birdsong, the rustle of trees, and the occasional bark of my dogs chasing squirrels. It's not much, but it's everything I need. Right here. Right now. I have peace. Thanks for listening to my story. If any part of it resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And hey, if you're new here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.